Earth Angels, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. It's your host, Kristen, and if you're new here, I just want to give you a warm welcome. This is a podcast, a school for your soul, where we grow, evolve, we heal so we can step into our soul's purpose and embark on that highest timeline. And I'm super excited for today's episode. As you guys know, I am a huge mushroom girly. I'm a huge proponent of using psychedelics to heal. And I thought it would be fun to bring on a psychedelic expert. And that's exactly what we're doing today. So I'm bringing on Matt Zemon. He is an educator, an author, a leader in the psychedelic wellness space, and he specializes in the impact of psychedelics on mental health. He also has two best-selling books, which is Psychedelics for Everyone and his newly released books, The Veteran's Guide to Psychedelics. He also has a master's degree in psychology and neuroscience from King's College in London, and he is just one of the best voices in the psychedelic spaces right now. So I'm super excited to have a very candid conversation. I know you guys are going to learn a lot. If you've been interested in dabbling in psychedelics or mushrooms specifically, you guys know that's my favorite soul medicine. I feel like I have such a deep soul contract with that medicine. But if you are interested, then I think this is going to be an amazing episode for you to educate yourself and just, yeah, expand your consciousness and expand your mind. So without further ado, let's get into it. Matt Zeman, welcome to Alignment Academy.
Kristen, it is great to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
I'm so excited to chat. So, I already told everyone, you're a psychedelic educator, you have your master's, and you're really a leader in this space. But I want to know a little bit about your journey because plant medicine always seems to find you at the right time. So, did psychedelics find you or did you go looking for it? Tell us all the tea.
That's a funny question because there's an argument that it's always finding you, whether you
Mm,
know you're looking for it or not. But
yeah.
I was not looking for it. I had some friends who had hired a guide and invited me to come participate. And it was something
Mm,
at that point, I was like, I don't do that. That's not, I was a business owner and a husband and a father. And I was like, no, I don't need it. But something inside of me said yes. And that first day completely changed the way I look at the world. Um,
mm,
yeah, so beautiful. I remember like melting into the earth and to like feeling the interconnectedness of all things like at a soul level. I remember feeling my mom's presence when she had died when I was 22. She was 49,
wow.
and thinking, oh, this is different. And being able to kind of pull like a string from her to me to my kids. Like, okay, I can see
Mm,
how we're all connected. This is different. I felt incredibly safe and loved in that first journey, and then realized, wait a minute, I don't feel safe and loved like this outside of
wow.
here. What's going on? And just kind of insight after insight. Yeah, so I left that thinking, what was this? I need to learn more. And that led to going back to school to study psychology and neuroscience, and then also traveling the world, experiencing many entheogens from a range of provider. And the journey keeps going. It's been amazing.
How old were you when you experienced this?
I would have been 46.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you speak about it, you can still tell how big of a profound impact that trip had on you. Like you can feel it in your voice
Mm.
and in just going back and meeting your mom and seeing the thread between your kids. I think that that's the beautiful thing about when you have a really powerful trip is you can always access that state of consciousness if you try hard enough.
Well, and there we just jumped all the way to the end of the conversation because that's kind of that's
Point.
what I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't realize that, okay, we use these tools, these psychedelics, these entheogens to remember who we already are. We
Mm,
use these tools to remind ourselves of our beauty and our love and our worth and our power.
mm,
And we use these tools to remember where we came from and understand where we're going. And now with that awakening, with that insight, with that awareness, we then bring that into the non-medicine days. And the practice is, how do we bring that awareness awakening insight into every conversation and every relationship and every interaction. And that's the practice. And of course, we all slip. And it's like, oh, I wasn't acting with as much of awareness in that moment as I know I'm capable of. Great. No bad at anybody. But how do I keep shortening that gap?
Mm.
And that's the practice.
Yeah, it's being awake in the dream. That's it.
Mm,
It's learning
hmm
to be awake in the dream. You the way you speak about this, you can tell that you have a very evolved consciousness, but I'm guessing that this is a result of of deeply doing the work, right? So I want to actually go back a little bit. You had this experience where you weren't looking for it. You see your mom, you see the thread between your mom and your kids and your ancestral lineage. You also feel love for the first time. Let's talk about what happened after that because we kind of skimmed over that and are coming to here in this state of consciousness. But was that difficult coming back and almost having all this work to do?
So I want to be clear on I love the reframe, and it's not that I felt love for the first time.
Mm.
It's that I felt this incredible sense of safety and love.
Mm.
So I mean, I'd lived a good life. I lots of I've felt love, given love, but I didn't remember what it felt to feel truly safe and loved. That I didn't need to do anything to earn this, but
Wow.
that I was given it and that I had it and that it was mine to take and to claim. And I had just forgotten it because I had put story on top of story on top of story that kept me away from that feeling. So then it's like, okay, how do I get to experience that love, that connection with source, that connection with spirit, that connection with all of us more regularly? And then that leads to, okay, then how do I shape my day to do this more regularly? And that again comes back to there's the practice. And it's been, of course, it's a learning curve, and it still continues. But I think I've narrowed in on the focus on the healing component of what that means. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Can you go into that a little more?
Yeah, I think for me, these journeys have covered such a huge amount of territory of healing over, well, in my case, it's been just a little bit over 6 years. So early on, like, okay, well, ooh, that was a childhood trauma that needed to be resolved. Okay, and then that got resolved. And then there's this other thing, and then there's this other thing, and this other. But now I'm recognizing that when I choose to sit with medicine, the primary purpose of sitting with the medicine is for me to say thanks and for me just
Mm.
to be in the gratitude. And the primary purpose of living outside of the medicine is to give thanks and to be in the gratitude.
Mm.
So I'm using the medicine from time to time as a tool to do this individual work in community. I left that out so far that most of the work I do is in community settings because I also, when I do this work in community, it is a reminder of I'm not alone. I've never have been alone. The world is here to support me. And as long as I'm breathing, how lucky am I to be alive?
I love what you said too, that you realize that this love was yours to take and yours to experience. And it really was like your innate state and it's like within you because in my first profound heroic dose, I took psilocybin. But I think that before that moment, I had thought that, oh, these other people are like closer to God, or like these other
Mm.
people can access God easier than I can. And they have something that I don't. And I think that one of the biggest gifts, it's given me so many gifts, but one of the biggest gifts and lessons plant medicine, my little plant allies have taught me is that you can't be separate from something that you are. And when you have that full ego death, you realize that it is so not separate from you. Source consciousness, that energy that courses through every leaf and every bird and every tree and every human, like it's not something that's other people get access to and you don't. It's something that you can have access to at every moment when you place your attention on it.
And we're just not told that growing up. Um,
Or
I
not.
didn't know. I wasn't told it growing up.
Hmm. Was this first journey, which medicine did you use?
No psilocybin.
With
Yeah.
psilocybin.
Yep.
So you talk about your book is called Psychedelics for Everyone. So you go into many different
Hmm.
medicines, yes?
Hmm.
I'm going to make a quick assumption about you if you listen to Alignment Academy, the podcast, that ever since you were little, you just had this deep feeling that you were meant for big things in this world. You weren't here to be ordinary, but you were here to be a mover and a shaker. Hi, I'm Kristen, and same. Except for years, I was self sabotaging because even though I felt in my soul that I was here to do extremely big things, I could not stop procrastinating, self sabotaging, feeling massive amounts of imposter syndrome, and don't forget getting triggered as fuck every single day of my life. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. And then I found inner work. I found energy healing. I found all of the modalities that I still use today. The spiritual tools that I use feel like I found a hack to this universe. Like, the rules don't apply to me because I know how to shift my vibration. I know how to reprogram my subconscious mind. I know how to give myself any beliefs that I want to believe about the world, like money comes easy to me and the rules don't apply to me and I don't need a real job. These are all just beliefs that I believe about myself. If you're similar to me, you know you have a big mission, but you know it's also time to get out of your own way and heal your blocks for good so you can actually just take action on your mission. This is why I created Alignment Academy, the membership. Inside this membership, you are going to get everything from live coaching sessions with me monthly, all of my best-selling heart work meditations and hypnosises. You're going to get all of my energy healing activations to do energy work on yourself anytime you want. Not to mention, as soon as you enroll, you get a library of 9 past masterclasses and 8 on-demand meditations. But the very best part is the people in the community. This is some of the most heart-centered, amazing humans I've ever come in contact with. Honestly, people have made friends in this group. They've met up in person in this group. It's the place to be. This is seriously the only space on the internet that weaves quantum manifestation, inner work, and business to help you quantum leap in your soul's growth and your business growth. If you're serious about healing, getting out of your own way, and taking massive action this year, then join with the link below. See you inside.
So again, I left that and said, first, I need to understand the science.
Okay.
So that's where going back for the master's in psychology and neuroscience, focused on psychedelic medicine. I didn't know how to read a scientific paper. It'd been, I don't know, 30 years since my last science class. So that was an important part of my journey. But meanwhile, I started traveling and experiencing different compounds, different entheogens by different types of practitioners, from taitas and shamans and maestros to MDs and PhDs, and trying to see kind of a range of how are these medicines delivered and what type of environments. And then it became, well, okay, great. Now that I can access it in all these different places, where do I want to access these medicines? And for me, it became really clear, or it has become really clear, that I'm personally most interested in the spiritual use of psychedelics. So psychedelics as a religious freedom, psychedelics as they have been used historically for thousands of years across all over the world. So psychedelics in ceremony, and it's an and. I am super respectful of the decriminalization nature movement and their principles of no adult should tell another adult that they can't put nature in their body, and pure decriminalization. Great. That's an and. And I'm respectful of the science movement. And I think they've done a lot to change the perception of these medicines, and the 50 years of propaganda that we've grown up in. The couple hundred universities studying psychedelics are helping shift our minds away, and it's giving some people another way to access these medicines. So while
Totally.
I choose to access it in ceremony, I do feel people should be able to access it medically and decriminally.
I love that. And yeah, I think that, at the end of the day, these are plants. They're from the earth. A lot of them, right? I mean, not all psychedelics. Some of them are from I'll argue that they're actually
Hmm.
all they're it, source is everything, right? So source did technically give us all of them. That's my belief.
I
But
think that's a beautiful belief.
especially the ones from the earth. I heard this quote the other day that, they call drugs medicine and they call plant medicine drugs. And
Hmm.
if you really just think about that for a second, most people just don't take a second to think about it. And I kind of want to go into this because it's an interesting topic. Everyone drinks alcohol. I don't really drink that much alcohol anymore. But when you tell people you do mushrooms, it's like you still get a little bit of weird, oh, you do mushrooms? But like, I took a microdose this morning. I'm technically on mushrooms right now, but I'm completely coherent. I'm actually sharper. I think my heart is more open. I actually feel more connected to this conversation because I'm like feeling the medicine. And it's like, it's so interesting the cultural conditioning we have around this. And so I'm curious, what are your thoughts on, yeah, the cultural conditioning and the legalization and what's normal and yeah, just your thoughts on that.
Love those questions. There's so many ways we can go with it. First thing, there's a great book out there. So if anyone's curious about kind of I'll just say the book. It's by a guy named Dr. Carl Hart, and it's Drug Use for Grown-ups.
Mm.
And he is a brilliant professor up at Columbia. He's an addiction specialist. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a taxpayer. And what he writes about in his book is sometimes he does drugs. He takes it a step further and says, and sometimes I do them just for fun. And I think that's fascinating. And he has a
Wow.
whole thing that I think is also important for those of us in the psychedelic space to be aware of is what he calls psychedelic exceptionalism, which is we can choose to assign meaning to these drugs, these medicines, and say that we are doing these because it's responsible and it's saving this and it's healing that. And other people can choose not to, but we still should check our bias when it comes to drug use in America. And we've seen how that's played out, disproportionately impacting Black and Brown people, with sentences, with impact on the community, with impacts on the family. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. And it is that the other thing it talks about is the flywheel between government policy, academia, who they hire, what
Mm.
they publish, what the public thinks, and what the police does. Really, really great book.
Wow.
We don't have responsible discussions about drugs in America. We say drugs and people go like, oh, but we don't think about all the different drugs we put in our body. We don't think about the risks associated with the things that are legal. And then conversely, we also sometimes gloss over the risks associated with psychedelics. So I try to bring both balances here in terms of, I don't like using even the word safe. I talk about risk reduced. So humor me here for a second on psychedelics. There's a lot of people point to this study from Dr. David Nutt at Imperial College London, where he said, let's forget how drugs are classified and just look at harm to self and harm to others.
Hmm.
And the most dangerous drug for self and others, as you said earlier, Kristen, is alcohol in his chart, 72. And then you move your way down, 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 drug, 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 drug. And on the far right-hand side are psilocybin mushrooms. It's a 6. So it's hard to look at 6 and 72 and be like, oh, okay, I get it. There's a relative risk that is dramatically different. That's not the same as psilocybin mushrooms are safe because you can still hurt yourself in that 6. So then how do we, those of us who want to engage with something like psilocybin mushrooms, how do we reduce that risk even more, mitigate that risk? And and that's where things like source, set, and setting come in. And when
Hmm.
we pay attention to those three things, the risks even become lower. But over 400 people every year die from acetaminophen overdoses in America. So all drugs have risks. It's up to us as consumers of drugs, which we all are already, on how we reduce our own risk and how we choose to use these drugs. But we all use drugs today.
I love the study you shared because it's so true. Like, alcohol is so harmful, not only to our own body, but it can be harmful to others. When we drink and drive, you've seen everyone's had that friend that gets really angry or, smashes things. But psychedelics, or not psychedelics, but mushrooms in particular, it's like a lot of times it's only making you more loving, it's more open. Why do you think that they're illegal? Like, this isn't just your opinion now. Like, why do you think that the government doesn't want us to use them?
I mean, it's a tricky question because we go back a long way of wanting to suppress the use of these tools. I think in our country specifically, with the Nixon administration, they had the anti-war left and they had the Civil War, civil rights movement happening. And they decided that they use drugs as kind of a way to infiltrate both groups. And by
Mm,
harshly penalizing drug use, they could break up the anti-war and the civil rights movement.
mm,
And they did. But even one of Nixon's lawyers said, did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. There's lots of questions about, is there society reasons not to have a fully enlightened, and enlightened is a tricky word, a more awake, um,
self-realized, yeah.
self-realized population? Sure, of course. But I think most of it stems from scarcity mindsets, stems from people who are trying to control and people using fear and scarcity tactics to do it. And that we are now, as a species and as a society, we all want this. We all want not this necessarily meaning the consumption of the medicine, but we want the direct spiritual experiences, which we haven't had for a while. We want the coming of age rites. We want the feelings of connectedness. We want the less depression, to experience less depression, less anxiety, less fear.
Yeah.
And I think those reactions to our society are very normal.
Hmm.
So how do we remind ourselves that we aren't alone? How do we remind ourselves that there's still a lot of beauty out there? How do we remind ourselves that our body is telling us, I'm energetically attracted to go fix this or work on that or create this? And that all of that's okay. But that we don't have to just be these cogs in a plant and factory workers that kind of our educational system teaches us to be.
Hmm.
And especially now when we have the rise of AI and autonomous cars and vertical farming and reductions in cost of knowledge, so many things are happening in the world where we get to say, okay, how do we want to interact with it?
Hmm.
And these medicines can help put us in conditions where we can find our inner voice. We can remember that who we are, and we can reclaim that power and then move through the world with that.
I love this. There's so many things that I want to ask you about in terms of your own spiritual journey and going into the crevices of the plant medicine world, but I want to do the audience some justice because I know a lot of people that might be, if you're landing on this podcast, I don't ever think because of mushrooms, I don't think anything is a coincidence anymore. When you're able to see the fabric of the universe and how everything is so synchronistic, you're like, everything is on purpose, even when I think it's not. So, to anyone listening, like, oh, wow, I've gotten 20 minutes into this episode. I am curious. I want to encourage you to keep listening and know that there's probably medicine in here for you. And there's a reason why you're so curious. But, something that we glossed over is you said we can make it safer with source, set, and setting. So, for anyone who is wanting
Hmm.
to experience, they're like, okay, I'm a little scared, but I think I might want to try like a microdose or even a heroic dose. Let's talk about source, set, and setting and how we can start to engage with the medicine in a safe way.
Yeah, I love that. And then let's come back to as a different topic, the microdosing case, 'cause that's really a whole
Yes.
different animal.
Okay, let's do it.
So when we talk about source, set, and setting, source is where did your medicine, so hang on, let me back up one more second. These pillars, these three S's, these apply regardless of how you choose to interact with psychedelics in America. So what do I mean by that? If you choose to interact with legal ketamine, which is available in all 50 states, you still are thinking about source, set, and setting. If you choose to do a work with one of the psychedelic churches which, in America, source, set, and setting. If you choose to work with an underground provider, coach, or a therapist, same thing. If you're going on a retreat, source is where did your medicine come from? If it's in the medical setting, it's probably pharmaceutical grade. You really don't have anything to worry about. Everyone else needs to ask, how often do you work with these medicines? Do you have them tested? Where do you get them from? Those types of questions.
Mhm.
And the provider should be able to at least have a conversation with you about their process. No right or wrong, just see how you feel about where they get their medicine. If you're buying it yourself, if you can afford to buy it, you can afford to get it tested. So there are test strips you can buy, and there are companies you can send in samples to, anonymous samples, and then they'll put on the internet, okay, not sample number 30, whatever, whatever, whatever. You thought it was MDMA, and it was actually fentanyl plus this, plus that, plus this.
Mm,
So source is the first way you keep yourself safe. Set is your mindset. So why now? Why are you working with psychedelics? Are you doing it because you want to do it? Or are you doing it because someone has told you to do it?
mhm,
If it is because of you, are you clear on your intentions? In my books, the beginner's guide to psychedelics is about to come out. The veteran's guide is out. Beyond the trip is out. These are all workbooks where you can go and help set your intention and just get journal around and get clarity on why are you there and what do you hope to have come out of this experience. But part of your mindset is, do you feel safe? So have you had whoever you're working with do some type of medical screening to look for contraindications? Do they know what prescriptions you're on, what supplements you're on, what your family history is? Part of your mindset is, do you know what the experience is going to be like? How long is it going to last? Is there going to be talking? Is there going to be music? Is it going to be live music? Is it going to be recorded music? Do they believe something that they want you, that they're going to reinforce during that ceremony? Are they going to ask you questions during the ceremony? Again, there's no right or wrong way. There's just different philosophies, and it's finding the one that works for you.
mhm.
And once you find all those things, then you have a mindset of, okay, I feel comfortable with what I'm doing. I know how long it's going to last, and I'm comfortable with the experience as much as I can be in advance of it. Which then brings us to the setting, which is the actual physical environment itself. And that's, are you going to be interrupted by neighbors or kids or Amazon? Are there rules? Will there be touching between you and the other participants? How close will you be to the other participants? Who is in charge of the playlist if there is one? Or is there music being done that's live? If I'm having a challenging experience, what happens? If I'm scared, what happens? Is there any, I mean, touch is such a, is there any touch? Have I given consent to any additional medicine before I was on medicine? So again, we're going pretty deep here in terms of
No, these are
things
good
that can
questions.
happen, but these
No
are
one
great
knows this.
questions to take care of that environment. Interesting. A lot of the harm when it comes to psychedelic medicine or psychedelic or entheogens and ceremony is not a physical reaction to the compound. It's what's happened around the compound. It's someone in the room doing something they weren't supposed to do. These are such non-ordinary states of being, alternative states of being, different types of reality. Like it's hard to understand how vulnerable we are until we've actually done it. Um, so that's where this, all the advice in the world, all the caution in the world is if you can control as much of that as possible so that you can surrender. That's the
Mm,
idea. Like, let's get all these things out of the way up front so I
yeah.
can surrender and trust in the process.
Yeah, it's similar. I'm going to make a connection to the work that I do. A lot of times I teach really deep meditation. I'm like, we got to get all the analytical stuff figured out before we meditate. We got to journal
Hmm.
on the questions. We got to decide where our safe space is. We got to decide what wound we're healing, and then we get into the meditation and then our mind just can go. It can just relax. It can do its thing. And I think that you're kind of saying the same thing with the psychedelics is like we have to set up the container that we have all the ish figured out, the details figured out, so that when we're in there, we can have this beautiful experience where we know we're taken care of. And truthfully, as adults, we actually don't have that many moments or experiences where we can have that full surrender to let go completely. And then typically the medicine turns off your default mode network, which allows you to have even more of that experience where you're really allowed to check out and just explore the crevices of your consciousness.
I love that. And again, for your audience, what we're talking about here is when you're choosing to use psychedelics in a deep, 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 deep manner. So,
Hmm.
of course, you can take less. You can use it at a concert. You can take it in nature. You can do all sorts of other ways to take psychedelics. But if you're talking about either a high dose medical experience or a high dose ceremonial or a high dose therapeutic or high dose coaching, empowerment, realization, whatever you want to call it, that's what we're talking about here. Can you take a high dose by yourself? Of course. And Dr. Groff will say, if you do that, there's still always going to be a part of your body and your mind that knows it has to keep itself safe and that will not let you surrender to the same level as you can do it when you have facilitators in the room that can
Mm.
keeping you safe.
Quick interruption to this episode because I have to tell you something. And what I have to tell you is I'm literally freaking obsessed with doing energy work. This has been one of my favorite modalities that I've added to my spiritual toolbox to shift my energy really freaking quickly. And as you guys have learned in Alignment Academy, this is a vibrational based universe, meaning as your energy shifts, the reflections in your life also shift. People that you're attracting, the experiences that you're attracting, the money you make, literally everything shifts. In Alignment Academy, my membership, part of it is that there are guided energy works added to the portal every single month. And I really want you to be able to experience this energy work because, guys, it literally works so quick. Your reality shifts so quick. The testimonials have been insane inside of Alignment Academy. So because you're a listener of Alignment Academy, I'm offering you a free guided energy work session in exchange for rating and reviewing the podcast. All you have to do is follow my podcast Instagram at Alignment Academy Pod on Instagram. And then after you've rated and reviewed the podcast, just screenshot it, send me a DM on Alignment Academy Pod, and I'll send you the link to download your free guided energy work. During this energy healing session, we're going to be working on your confidence and your self-love. When you are filled with your own confidence and your own self-love, you are magnetic as fuck to the rest of the world. Magnetism is created when we are so filled up with love for ourselves. It's also created when we just really fuck with ourselves super hard. Like, think about really magnetic people. They're not asking other people to like them or validate them. They're just like, I really fuck with me. And if you want to too, then yay. And if not, then it's all good. I can't wait for you to try this energy healing. Please DM me and let me know how it goes. And now let's get back to the episode. I love this. So let's go to what you want to talk about next, which is microdosing. It's a
Mm.
whole different beast. What are your thoughts? Like, do you prefer one over the other? For me, microdosing was kind of the entry point because I was scared of those higher doses, and it allowed me to not be scared. I was like, oh wait, I don't, you think you're gonna take a capsule and you're gonna like have this crazy experience and you don't feel anything, and you're like, wait. And then you take two, and then you just kind of explore and you play with the medicine a little bit. But what has your experience been with microdosing? Do you microdose? Give us all the things.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of microdosing. I try to set the stage again, saying the research is split.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of research that says it absolutely helps you with interconnectedness, with decreasing feelings of depression and anxiety, increasing creativity. So there's about half the research says it does those things, and about the other half says nope, it's a placebo. So
Mm,
make your own decision.
yeah.
And it just hasn't been researched as much as any of us would like, but that's out there.
What's your personal opinion?
Oh, I don't so many people that I know who microdose regularly feel the grays are less gray, the blues are bluer. I think it's incredibly powerful. I love what you said. For many people, it's their first toe in the water. It's okay. I want to start to what I would use the language of developing a relationship with this plant.
Hmm.
So, okay, I'm going to start. I want to just try a little bit. And when we're microdosing, for those who don't know, you're taking like a tenth to a 20th of those size doses that we were talking about a minute ago. So very small. And we
Very
either
small.
say they're subperceptual, meaning so small you don't even feel them, or certainly sub-intoxicating, that you should be able to drive and work and hang out with your kids and all that good stuff.
Record a
Um,
podcast, ask
Record a
questions.
podcast, yes. Microdosing Collective is a great resource where they're bringing people across the country together around informing themselves about microdosing. Moms on Mushrooms is another good resource for people who are
Mm,
interested on psilocybin specifically. They talk a lot about microdosing as kind of a first step. And again, it comes back to I think there's no right or wrong way to enter a relationship with psychedelics. Some will say, I want to come into a ceremony and go
mm,
that way. Some will say, I want to do a retreat and have experts take care of everything. And then I will do this. But microdosing can be pretty powerful. I'm also seeing a lot of use of microdosing for people who are weaning themselves off of antidepressants. So they are
mm,
using it as an additional scaffolding. And because you don't microdose every day, you typically microdose maybe 4 days in a row, 3 days off, or every fourth day. It is a good scaffolding. It can be a good scaffolding for people who are trying to get off of an SSRI, as an example.
mm. I love
And
that.
there's a great resource for that. The one I always recommend is spiritpharmacist.com. He has a whole guide to tapering.
It's a great name.
Um, Ben Malcolm, yeah, Ben Malcolm, spirit pharmacist. The other thing he does for your audience is if you have a unique medical situation, you're taking a specific prescription or a supplement or have a family history, he does lots of medical intakes. So you can sign up for a consult and you give him your medical information. You have like an hour consult with him, and he'll talk to you
Wow.
about what psychedelics are based on what he knows in the research are more or less risky for you or available to you based on your specific history. And what I like about
Love
working
that.
with whether it's him, there's another one named Dr. Emily Kolpa who does similar work. That's K with Kolpa with a K. They have nothing to sell you. So if you go to a retreat or a ketamine provider, they're trying to sell you a six ketamine package or a beautiful retreat in Jamaica. Ben and Emily aren't selling you anything other than information. So by
Mm.
starting with them, you can say, okay, well, could I work with psilocybin, or is MDMA better? Or am I better with ayahuasca?
Hmm.
Or no, I really should avoid all of them. Or I should taper off of this before doing that. With that information, then you are empowered as to, okay, now I get to go find the center. I know already I'm qualified. So now let me go and find the experience I want to find.
I love that. That's such a good resource for anyone who's interested. And I know that you have personally sat with almost all the medicine,
All of
right?
those medicines. Yeah.
All of those
Not all the
medicines.
medicines,
Yeah.
all the ones in the books. Yeah.
All the ones in book. Okay. So
Actually, it's not true. I've never sat with Iboga or Ibogaine. Yeah. But every other medicine in the book I've sat with.
I recently just listened to one of your podcasts where you were saying, like, you were just talking about the different medicines and what they're good for. And I thought it was a very
Mm.
interesting share. You were like, the God molecule and this and that's good for this. And so I would love to just, pick your brain on let's go through the top medicines in your book and what you feel is the best experience or like what you experienced or what people seek typically.
I will do that. But first, I know you have psilocybin experience. Have you worked with any of the other medicines?
I've worked with Wachuma.
Okay.
I've worked with Hape, but
Hmm.
other than that, I'm actually truly like never really felt called for ayahuasca. I've never felt called for MDMA, or I actually do feel a little called to do some MDMA with mushrooms, but
Hmm.
I have never felt called to do like the 5-MeO DMT.
Hmm.
But, for me, I know they're in my path. I just also know how plant medicine works, where it just calls you when it's time and you find it and it finds you. So I'm very much waiting for those things to call me and I'm open, but I haven't like felt the need to go do the experience yet.
Yeah, and that's perfect. I would hope your audience hears that loud and clear, that there should never be any pressure
Pressure, no
to do
pressure.
any ceremony that you don't want to do
Yeah.
or any fear of missing out. That there are, for all of the years of prohibition and propaganda in America, the wisdom keepers have kept these medicines alive.
Hmm.
So there's no reason to believe that the access you have today, you wouldn't have tomorrow and the next day. Um,
Absolutely. And yeah, I really want to stick here for a second because I am a big proponent in never pushing plant medicine on anyone or like, even yeah, I have some friends that are like, I really want my family to do it or I really want it's like it's such a personal experience. It's such a deep relationship and such a deep transformation if you choose it, if your soul chooses it, that you really got to be ready for it. And so yeah, I just want to preface with that is this podcast is not forcing or wanting anyone to do it. It's more, I know there are a lot of people who are curious about it. So this is more an educational podcast on if you're
Love
just
that.
curious.
Mhm. Just talking.
Just chatting.
So let me try breaking your answer down this way. I think for those who are interested in a legal option in America, you really are stuck with ketamine. Nothing wrong with ketamine, but that's your only option in all 50 states. It's a shorter acting medicine. It's a 40-minute to an hour kind of journey. It's technically not a psychedelic. It's a dissociative anesthetic. Not that that matters, but there is a nuance of difference. And then the thing I'd want you to walk away from this episode thinking about with ketamine is so in the Western delivery model, there are doctors who believe that ketamine is a biochemical reaction. They're going to put some ketamine in your body, you're going to have a reaction, and it's going to alleviate symptoms of depression or anxiety or OCD or whatever else you're trying to treat. And that's legal, and that's a doctor philosophy. There are other ketamine providers, also legal, who say, yeah, but it's really more of a biochemical, psychosocial, spiritual process. And they want you to do the similar type of preparation. They want to give you a soundtrack and maybe an eye mask and a blanket, and they want to help unpack what happened afterwards. Both are legal, both are available. And we as the consumer have to decide what is the process that we want. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. I know which I'd prefer, but both are legal. When we move beyond that, I like to break the medicines into kind of buckets. So the first bucket I like are things like what I call heart openers. So
Hmm.
the most common heart opener is MDMA. The less common but related is MDA, also known as sassafras. These are medicines that, for me, they help me feel love for myself and for others in this. My heart swells, my shame, blame, and guilt are turned down. It's beautiful medicine. We're seeing great research with MDMA with people with treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress disorder. We've seen great research with couples and couple therapy with MDMA. On the couple side, when we're both taking MDMA, I can look at you and say, "I love you so much, and when you do this, it makes me feel that."
Wow.
And instead of you being defensive, or me being defensive, I can say, "I hear you. I hear you, and I don't want that, and I can do better. I will do better. I didn't understand because in my non-altered state, I had all these defenses up. I wasn't even listening." So MDMA is super powerful for that. On when it comes to veterans, first responders, victims of sexual assault, it doesn't numb the experiences of the past. It doesn't change what happened. It actually brings it up close where they can discover it. They can then reprocess it and change their own narrative about their relationship to that experience.
Yes, so
So
powerful.
again, yeah, these medicines don't cure anything by themselves. They enable the human, they enable us, you and me, to do our own work, to be our own, to be the medicine. And because of that, it's not a taught thing. Oh, you didn't tell me, give me the secret answer, then now I know how to process this awful thing that happened to me when I was 16. No, I know in my body how to process it and came from within instead of from without. And that leads to rates like 3 sessions of MDMA with therapy before and after, with that population that was treatment resistant, over 70% emerged without a PTSD diagnosis.
Wow.
And these are phase 3 clinical trials, and it's
Wow.
that high of a percentage. So it gives me great hope that we're going to have access to those heart openers in the not too distant future. And then
So
we get into
powerful.
interconnectedness of all things, which I mean, we talked about psilocybin. We can talk about, I think ayahuasca, I'd put in that same category where it's like, okay, I realize that I'm not separate and apart from nature. I am nature. Oh, that's interesting. And that, wait a minute, if I just stop and feel the weight of the earth on my ground, and if I just stop and pay attention to this beautiful green all around me, and if I just stop and realize, oh my God, I get to breathe, and how many billions of accidents had to happen for me to be alive right now breathing? How lucky am I? And wait a minute, if I'm nature and we're all connected, then we look like different waves, but we're still the same ocean.
Hmm.
So then if you're hurting, am I hurting? Okay. And now how do I want to take that information and move through the world?
Mm.
And how do I want to check my own judgment about everything and anything as I'm moving through the world? But I think ayahuasca, the mescaline-based wachuma or peyote or San Pedro and psilocybin all are so good about just we're not, nature's not something happening around us or to us. It's
It
for
is
us and
us.
by us, and it is
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
then we get into you did bring up, this will be the last one to talk about, would be, I'll do 5-MeO-DMT, which we're talking about the God molecule. So, what's different about 5-MeO-DMT, which is also known as bufo, and there's a natural version of it, which is the venom of the Bufo alvarius toad, and then there's a synthetic version of it, is it's the only non-duality medicine that we know. So what does non-duality mean? It means normally there's a subject and an object. There's me and there's you in this place at this time. Now, I might
Mm.
not be a human in my subject and object, but there's still a subject and an object. With non-duality, there's nothing. It's like I talk about it as like I dissolved into math, and just felt
Wow.
the vibration of the universe.
Like a full
That
ego death.
like well, it's being so a couple of things. Ego death happen. There's ego deaths that can happen on pretty regularly with ayahuasca, with psilocybin, where I think I have died and crossed over, and then the beautiful part of the death in those experiences is the actual realization that you've come back to life. You're not dead. And that gratitude for being alive, the
Mm.
moment that switches from, oh my God, I thought I was dead, to I'm not, is a phenomenal feeling. In a non-duality medicine, it is an ego death, but it's more of, it happens so quickly. I mean, you inhale this and within 10 seconds, I am, again, speaking from the eye, I'm just vibrating. And I don't even think of a me. I'm just in this energetic field. And it's so impossible to put words on. Yeah, I remember people have tried to say, it's like if like you say the word om and you just lived in the it's
Mm.
that, and it's the sitting, it's a private meeting with God. Others have described it. For me, it's the idea. It's the first time I ever understood what a heaven could be like, that how's a room for everybody. Because we are just this vibration, and it's so beautiful. I don't know anything like that particular medicine. And these are all for different purposes and different things. So I think there's some people who are like, oh, I'm more attracted to the heart openers, and others like, I really could use some dose of interconnectedness and I really want to connect with God. Great. All of these tools can be used for different purposes.
This was so, this is so amazing. I'm like, now I'm even curious. I definitely want to have that experience in my lifetime for sure. My question for you is, how has your life changed and how has your connection to the divine, God, source, whatever you want to call it, changed? Like, were you always deeply connected to God? I can see how, you speak about the interconnectedness and you can just tell you're tapped in right now, or you feel connected to something greater than yourself. I'll say that. I would love to hear about your experience with coming to where you are now.
I had so much death at a relatively young age. I mean, my grandmother is 17, my father is 19, my mom is 22. It's like boom, boom, boom. And when my mom died, I was like, there's no God. There's no God that would do this. And I went for 20 some years, like reading all of the like the God is not great books and yeah, I was not on board at all. And literally in the very first psilocybin experience, within minutes, it was like, oh, well, I was just being silly. I just didn't know. And now it's more than a big part of my life. It's just a different part of understanding. And so you talk about how's my life different? I think I went through so many years trying to please parents that weren't even alive. I went through so many years thinking my purpose is to provide versus my purpose is to love. Since finding psychedelics, it's changed the relationship with my kids, with my sister, with my wife, with my friends. There is the same amount of hours in a day, but I find so much more time to connect that just didn't exist before. And operating from this sense of, I don't need your approval, and I have plenty of love to give you. And we're in this together. If we're talking to each other, we're in this together. And how do I just pay more attention to the things that I create in my life and not assume that, oh, that's just some random thing that happened. No, everything's my creation. just like everything's your creation. And it can be beautiful and messy and all that at the same time. But operating from that sense of deep, deep knowing that I am loved, I am worthy, and I'm enough. And now what do I want to do with that information to
Mm,
generate some resources so I can eat and have a roof over my head and do those things? But that's different than I'm looking outside to feel loved. I'm looking outside to feel enough, to feel seen. I
mhm.
don't need to be seen from there. I just need to remember. And that's where you talked about your meditation practices. For me, that's what meditation's about. It's setting the growth. If I can start each day with even a simple 20-minute meditation, it's like, oh, okay, I've now set the whole framework for the day in which I'm going to operate. I'm going to remember that power throughout the day. And things don't matter as much, and things can matter tremendously.
It really does give you that personal relationship with God. I remember I had my awakening very early. I remember being 20, 21, and people would be like, "What's the difference between religion and spirituality?" I'm in college or just getting into college, and I'm like, "Well, religion," and my mom's religious. Like, I don't have anything against religion, but in my experience, personal experience, it was like they told me what to believe, and then my spirituality, and then even deeper psychedelics gave me a opportunity to experience God one on one. It's like I'm not believing something that you're telling me, I'm experiencing it and then creating my own belief about it from that. And I think that that's the beautiful part is with so much of the work that you go into these realms and you do, not only is it giving you these personal experiences, but something that you spoke to too is it's showing you, it's bringing up the thing that you need to face to the surface. And it's not doing the work for you, but it's showing you the exact thing that you need to look at if you want whatever you want on the other side of it. If you want the healing, if you want to live with an open heart, if you want more love in your life. And I do inner work every day of my life, like just with meditation and inner child work and doing work on myself, the deepest healing I've ever gotten. And the things that I don't think I've ever been able to see
Mm.
alone have been when I've been working with a plant medicine. And it's just bringing to the surface the thing that I've never, ever, ever looked at, but is the exact thing that I need to work on when I get off the medicine and go back into my life.
It's amazing. And it's amazing how many yeah, how I just didn't know what I didn't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
And then you can't see what you've seen. You can't unsee what you've seen. And
Exactly.
but you can forget. And that's, I guess, I know we've covered a lot of ground today, but if there are people who do experiences like these psychedelics and they have beautiful, profound experiences, but then they don't give themselves room in their life to process and to have time to reflect those experiences. And what happens is those remembrances that happen on the medicine, then they start to slip away. And it becomes no different than I went to Europe last year. I had mushrooms 2 years ago versus finding time every day for meditation, journaling, nature, and ideally finding a community of people where you can openly talk about this is what's happening in my life, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm creating, and for them to remind you and for you to remind them that you are beautiful, you are loved, you are enough. And yeah, that sounds really like a big learning experience for you.
That's such an important thing to touch on is that the integration is really the most important part, not only to close the loops of making sense of what happened in a rather senseless trip, not senseless, but really hard things to put into words, but creating your own meaning, but also keeping the medicine or the lessons alive by having daily practices that connect you to God, that connect you to your intuition, that connect you to that deeper thread of life that lives within all of us. I think that's such an important thing to speak on.
Yeah, I love that. And only because I'm still playing with language so much for those who are hearing, I mean, we can use God, we can use source, we can use spirit, we can use universal consciousness. Those friends who ask you and ask me about the difference between religion and spirituality, those questions come from harm. that institutionalized religions have
Mm,
done. And
yeah.
some of that harm is comes in the baggage that accompanies words like God. So we'll all find language together, but that's what we're talking about here is how do we connect to this universal source of life, of love? And how does that connection help each of us individually move through life
Mm.
lighter, stronger, more aligned, more confident, and more connected?
I know we're running out of time. Wish I could
Hmm.
literally speak to you forever, but I guess my final question for you is what is the greatest, most profound, your favorite lesson that plant medicine or psychedelics have given you?
I think it's just how incredible is it that we get to breathe. There was a specific journey that I literally thought I was turned, you said, so not ego death. I thought I turned into worm food. Like I was that far into the process. And then all of a sudden, I took that first breath and I was like, wow, 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 wow. And all of the universe and all of the planets and all of the stars and all of the this, that I get to be alive and conscious now. The sense of gratitude I have for this is I can't explain it enough. But I know I'm so, so thankful and so lucky just to have this little bit of time right now.
Matt, it has been such a pleasure to have you and all your expertise and your really beautiful neutrality and the space that you come at this work from like giving us both sides, I think is just a really safe space for people to explore and have curiosity around this. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so
Mm,
much for coming on Alignment Academy. I know that the audience is going to absolutely love this episode. If they want to stay connected or read your books or just stay in your world, where can they find you and what do you have going on?
amazing. All my books are on Amazon. So we have The Beginner's Guide to Psychedelics, The Veteran's Guide to Psychedelics, Beyond the Trip, and Psychedelics for Every One of the Four. I'm active on Instagram and LinkedIn. And truly, if you have a question, if we didn't cover something today that's still eating at you, ask me, reach out to me on either of those. I'll get back to you. My site is mattzemon.com. There's a free guide to microdosing, and also you can put in questions there. And if you're looking for a speaker or something for an event, that's a great, or bulk books. A lot of my books are bought by clinics and retreats who buy 100 at a time. That's a great place to reach out to me and my team through there.
Thank you so much, Matt. We'll hopefully see you again on the podcast. And
Would love that, Kristen.
until next time, see you guys next week.
Thank you.